Hey, welcome to the Treehouse Athenaeum. We're really excited you could join us today. Take a seat or maybe a walk as we jump into some topics you probably wondered about. From deciphering dreams to following your wildest intuitive hits, we've definitely got something for you. Let's get started.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. We are here on this, and I'm actually going to call it out on a Thursday. It's a Jupiter Thursday here. And I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with my friend Dave today. As we're building out the treehouse, we are having the opportunity to meet with each of us and share a bit more about what we're bringing into the world. And the conversation today with you, Dave, I'm really looking forward to. One, I get to learn more about you, as the world does too, and to really get to talk about the importance, the crucial importance of leaning into our spiritual awakenings. So, you ready for this conversation, my friend?
I am so ready. So ready.
Awesome. So, we were talking yesterday, and in that conversation, we realized that we had yet another mutual connection around our friend Walt Whitman. May I start with the quote with Walt?
Yeah, please.
I,
I love it.
I was going
Sage.
to do the abbreviated, but I'm actually going to read the longer one because I think this really feeds more into our conversation today. So, says, re-examine all you have been told in school or church or in any book and dismiss whatever insults your soul. And your very flesh shall be a great poem and have the richest fluency, not only in its words, but in the silent lines of its lips and face, and between the lashes of your eyes, and in every motion and joint of your body. I just feel like that
Mm.
leads so beautifully in today's conversation.
I love a poet, but does it get like any clearer than that? Like our body's a temple, we have this imagery, and it's just when you're in alignment, you just exude the divine, right? The source is in
Yeah,
everything, and you just we say it when we see people. You're glowing differently, or you look, your energy's different. It's very
yeah,
much that when you're on, you're on. Mm.
yeah. So, my friend, you're really on in this part of your life. You're glowing more and
I
more,
feel it.
yeah?
Definitely feel it. Yeah, more than I've ever been. You know.
So, tell me, how did you arrive at this precipice in your life where a spiritual awakening is not only the gift that's been given to you and how you've been able to develop and become more of Dave in this lifetime, but also the gift that you're gonna be able to and you're already sharing with the world?
Mm. How do we get to a spiritual awakening? It's not easy. Let's start with that. What is a spiritual awakening? It's
Yeah,
usually a complete transformation of your understanding of what existence is. Spirituality, I would say, is the search. It's such a term that we throw around so easily,
yeah,
and it often gets convoluted with like religious terminology, because you can be an atheist and still be spiritual.
yeah,
But you can also be religious and spiritual,
yeah,
and or not. It's just interesting, but it's the search for our connection to something bigger than ourselves. And again, that's why I think it can go secular to, science. Some of the scientists I know are some of the most spiritual people, because they can see, even in a scientific way, like the order of the universe. They wouldn't call it
yeah,
creation, but they still can see the wonder and the awe and the interconnectedness of molecules. We're all made of stars in essence.
yeah.
So
Let's
this
jump in.
oh yeah.
Can I interrupt you there?
Yeah.
Because before we dive in and try to describe what a spiritual awakening is, I think one of the best ways that we can learn from each other as humans is by sharing our own experience. So can we just
Yeah.
first dive into you and
Okay.
how you've experienced your own spiritual awakening? I know you've gone through many iterations of this, going back to your childhood, being raised in the Midwest and
Yeah.
being the unique person you were that wasn't quite a fit in that, and how you've had to brush up against the all of those definitions, just like the Walt Whitman quote. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about how you have awakened, Dave.
So my whole life I've been very in tune with spirituality. Like as a kid, I was always drawn to the supernatural, to monsters, to witches, to mythology. Like the Greeks and Egyptians always resonated with me. But when I was around, yeah, I would say about 10 or 11, we had a house fire, which just
Mhm.
completely transformed our lives, destroyed everything. It's the rebirth, reinvention. But we got back in the church, and that's when the
Mhm.
church really started. It was good for a while, the community we needed at that time, but then a lot of other things came in with that church, culture, the doctrine, the dogma.
Yeah.
Um, and as I came out, or started, my sexuality started developing, it was soon very apparent that that was antithetical teachings of the good book. So
Yeah.
my family adopted that, and there was a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, and it
For
culminated to a
you or
point.
for your family?
I think, God, I wonder if there's layers for them too,
Mm.
my parents, especially my
Yeah.
dad. I remember he got me a swimsuit, Sports Illustrated swimsuit calendar in an attempt to assuage me, I guess. But he made
It
me
wasn't
hang
the
that
one
in
with the
my
Speedos?
all the bikinis, not the Speedos. I would have preferred. But yeah, it's just that told me where he was. Like I was not, he couldn't accept me for who I was and where I was. And that eventually culminated into me actually going to a conversion ministry at the
Mhm.
threat of being kicked out of the house. So I had been in this conversion ministry going, and I wanted to go with an open mind because I love God. I love the source, I wanted to see, but everything that was happening in that experience was just, it wasn't resonating, it wasn't aligning, and just like Walt said, like, it was insulting my soul. I knew this
Yeah.
was not my truth. What they were trying to feed me was not my truth, my path.
Yeah.
But I knew at the threat of losing my home and my culture and everyone, the community I knew, and having to completely rebuild myself and start from scratch was terrifying. Like
Yeah.
I was just a kid. Um,
Wasn't that
but
part of a spiritual awakening sometimes too, is often the
that's
things that are there and supporting us and loving on us, right? It can be confusing because it's not always loving and supporting us in the way that we
yeah,
need,
as we
but
know
but
it.
it's covering some of us, right? It can get a little confusing. Am I supposed to choose
Big
this or
time.
that?
And
Yeah.
I always say, like, a spiritual awakening is kind of like the rug being pulled out from under you. The
Yeah.
point of it is to put you in a place where you have to um, trust and rely on something greater than you. You are at the mercy of these circumstances. I only have my choices in the moment, right?
Yeah.
So I did that, and speaking full circle of like what spirituality can be, um, I had a friend I had met through one of my first jobs as a grocery boy, like helping people out to their car. I met a retired nurse, and her name was Lee, and she was an atheist, a staunch, like just hippie. She marched in, the protest. She adopted, like just one of the best human beings I've ever known, you know? She actually took me in the night I was kicked out. She showed me unconditional love when my own family didn't.
Yeah.
So that was one of the greatest lessons I learned. But I wouldn't say that was my real spiritual awakening. I think we go through different seasons and different levels of this, right? Because
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
an expansion of our awareness.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting married, getting a relationship, and I just, when you're in love, and then 15 years pass. Towards the end of the marriage, though, I started having more. Um, my soul started calling up.
Yeah.
I wasn't living the life I wanted. I wasn't living up to my potential. I wasn't doing what I knew inside that I should be doing. Right.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't know what I needed to be doing,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
soul was like calling to me, screaming at this point because I had been numbing it for years and avoiding it. And I'd say around 37 is when I started really exploring, diving in. I started, I went to my first psychic or medium, and I started buying books on the topic, and
Well, hold on before
considering
you start
praying.
talking about all the things.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. Tell me more. You go to meet your first psychic and medium, and you hear what, and what lights pop on, and you start buying books, and you hear what, and
Yeah.
yeah. Can you dive into those pieces a little bit more?
Yeah, honestly, how it just presented itself, and I think for most of us, is those inklings.
Mm-hmm.
It's that subtle, it's that simple. And when you follow the step, like the seeds, if you will, that's what leads you to the next. And that's what expands and opens the doors that you're actually looking for. So
Yeah.
I knew even as a kid, I just thought about this last night. It's so funny preparing for this. I was 11 and Madonna had released her Bedtime Stories music video, the most expensive music video ever made to that point. But in the video, she's like hooked up to a machine, but she's floating in a salt bath, so it's already kind of weird. And all of a sudden, she's robed in white and she's pregnant. So like the virgin motif, and there's whirling dervishes, and just there's a point where she actually gives birth, and all these like doves burst out of her tummy, you know. And I'm just as an 11-year-old, yes, I'm gay, so it's Madonna. I'm like, yeah, but it was just so I was drawn to those esoteric, that symbolic
Yeah.
symbolism and all these things. So I knew even then my soul was drawn to it. And I would just encourage anyone, if you're feeling pulled to something, that got me into yoga, that got me into going to my first medium. And then all these little experiences start making the piece like it's puzzle pieces. It starts getting a clearer picture. And then you start making connections, which start reaffirming your beliefs or your philosophies that have resonated, like Walt Whitman.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then meeting people. So that's really how it started. It takes time.
Yeah.
And but again, if you remain present, if you are active, I always say if your soul's actually looking for it, if you're truly seeking it, you're going to find it. Your
Yeah.
soul will take you exactly where you need. It will bring the people, the experiences that you need.
So you were truly seeking this
Yeah,
at different
like
stages of your
yeah.
life.
And it was fun at first. Like everyone loves like celebrity ghost stories. I love that. I was religiously watching that. And Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium. But what kept me coming back is because I started seeing these healing experiences for other people. I started
Yeah.
making these connections of, oh, this celebrity ghost story, even if it was made up, there was something about, the room got colder. And like this person, when they saw something, it got colder. And like this message sounded similar to that message. And so you just start realizing like it's more connected than
Yeah.
there's things going on that we can't prove with science yet, but doesn't mean it's any less real or valid because our
Yeah.
personal experience is our guide.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And you said something where you said, spiritual awakening happens in steps and it's
Yeah,
evolving.
we couldn't
And
handle it all at once.
yeah. Yeah. And I would go so far as to say it's a lifetime, right? It's not like you have
Yeah,
this awakening and boom,
right.
right? Like, I mean, well, let me not speak for you.
Sometimes it can be right,
Well,
like you feel your
well,
world completely.
yeah, say
Mhm.
more. Like, yeah, I'm curious
Well,
how, yeah,
yeah, like, where that was more gradual, I would say my coming out, getting kicked out of my house, that was intense. That was
yeah,
I had to be removed from what I knew. Everything I knew, I had to leave the toxic church culture. The only way that was gonna happen was that tower moment where everything came down to
yeah,
start rebuilding again. Um, and that took me to the next level. But then I avoided some of my growth and my healing for a lot of years. I was stuck in patterns and cycles. I wasn't going to therapy. I didn't have a family of origin that could help me through this. So I didn't have the wherewithal to seek out what I needed. But that's
yeah,
okay because again, we always get there when we need to. I probably wouldn't have been ready is another piece of this. I wouldn't have been open to accept the things I needed to see and the changes I needed to make until my soul got to a
yeah,
point where we were so dissatisfied with the
yeah.
life I had created. I knew it was time to change, and that prompted the exploration.
So I'm hearing there's no need to force this timing for anybody. People know
That's
when
the
they
gag.
know. Yeah,
We're exactly where we should be for exactly the right purpose. And I put so much pressure on myself constantly for years. I should be, I could be, I need to thrive. I should be striving. I'm not producing enough. I'm not
yeah,
enough, right? Like, and who am I keeping up with? Where are
yeah,
these like expectations? That's where that observer of your thoughts comes
yeah,
in. Like, why, what standard am I holding myself up to and why? So
yeah,
I equate a lot of my spiritual journey, my spirituality is to deprogramming a lot of that stuff. Whose voices are these? Like,
yeah,
whose opinions are these? Like, where did I
yeah,
pick these up? You know, my
yeah,
authentic life is not that. It doesn't resonate.
yeah. I I I wholeheartedly align with you on that because the awakening piece. And I know we're at a time in at least in our present culture, right? It's 2024 as we're recording this, where there's been this cultural demeaning of the word, awakening, wokeness, those kind
Yeah.
of things. But at its core, it really is questioning the education, the boundaries, the expectations, the shoulds,
Yeah.
right? And seeing if that actually works for us, right? And it is a little bit of a rebellious energy, but I tend to
Has to be.
believe it has to be, but I
Yeah.
tend to believe that if we were all allowed to really, like, show up wholly as we were divinely placed in this universe to be, right, there wouldn't be this pushback, like, the pushback, I mean, just to put it in simple places, is the conformity,
Yeah.
be terrified about the awakening, right? I think I'm planting that seed here because I think one of the gifts that you're giving the world, Dave, is the courage that it takes to actually go down this process. And yeah, uh, well, yeah.
I
Tell me
appreciate
about
that.
your courage in this process, Dave, because it's a vital piece to going down this path.
Well, you have to go through it. And that's the thing. It's the standing up. And I think there's an interesting foil in my journey. It's funny how when I came out, the coming out process, being a queer person, like you have to announce yourself to the world. And I think a lot of like heteronormative people don't understand that. Like
Yeah.
there's levels to it, you know what I mean? Like whether you come out like, a certain religion or dating someone your parents don't think you should.
Yeah.
But when it's connected to your identity, there's this intrinsic power that comes from the act of, you know what I mean? When you declare yourself, it's an empowering act.
Yeah.
But it's funny how after I did that, I kind of plateaued again. And there was almost like a second coming up.
Yeah.
uh, you got understanding the people I've surrounded myself with in my life is almost like another church thing, but it was the societal norm, it's the expectations. I had to come out again of this isn't resonating with me. This
Yeah.
this isn't the life I want. I know I'm so in tune here, but I'm having to separate it and keep it. That fracture causes anxiety, that causes depression when we're not living up with our, aligning up with our authentic path.
Yeah.
It really it manifests in your body, and illnesses and just God, anxiety is how it manifested for me. I knew I wasn't living up to or what I needed, my soul needed to be doing.
Yeah.
But yes, there is a courage, and I always want to encourage others in the facet of it is hard. It is hard to face your truth. It is so hard to stand up in the face of like what you need, at the cost of a lot potentially. But
Yeah.
the other side of it, it's just
Yeah.
peace, joy, like
Yeah.
abundant. Like you said it as we started this, like you feel like you can see that I'm in flow.
Yeah.
This is where I've been the last year and a half, 2 years. It's taken a while. It's taken a lot of rebuilding, a lot
Yeah.
of work. I can honestly say I'm the happiest I've ever been though. And I
Yeah.
can't, if I'm here now, I can't imagine what's to come. I can't
Yeah.
imagine what's down the road?
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, guess what? The next step is actually imagining that and then allowing that to
Yeah.
happen next,
And
right? Because I
and
feel
being
you
the
on that
person who can
plateau.
embrace it.
There are steps that
Yeah.
as you go through this process, it's not just as easy as like, oh, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. You snap your fingers and boom, you're there,
No.
right? Like
Mm-mm.
it's it's a little cliche, but it's a real great, not just a metaphor, but literal thing to think of is how butterflies even come to be, right?
Yeah. A
Like that's a
metamorphosis,
real
transformation.
process. And we go through
Mm.
something very similar to that when we become into who we are. And there are those middle places you get there and you're like, wait, well, I'm a caterpillar now, but I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Right. And then you go to a cocoon and you're like, but this isn't who I am. Right. And just even the butterflies, they have their migration periods, right? Like we go through these cycles. So it's yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
to be dreaming ahead, my friend. You're
And
right there. Yeah.
it's exciting too to know that I'm becoming the person that can accept these things I've always wanted, that allows
Yeah.
space for it. But
Hmm.
there's a shedding of what you have to release. Spirituality, I think, for a lot of us is this. It's the search for our purpose a lot of times,
Yeah.
and again, whether that's secular or like how you view that, the perspective is the same. Like, what is my connection, my life to the legacy, the the greater?
So you said to shed those things to go for what I really wanted. And talk to me more about what it was like to even get clear about what you wanted. Like, I'm not sure everybody knows what they want at the beginning of this. Like, they feel the friction and anxiety and the depression and the frustration. Can you share a little bit more about what that's
Yeah,
been like for you?
honestly, you're hitting it on the head for me because the hardest part, I think one of the most intense parts of all of this, like I knew I didn't want my marriage. I knew that. I
Mhm.
knew that I had to change my life. I had to get like start, my community over again. I had to start a lot of these things. The hardest part for me was like finding a new dream, finding
Mhm.
that new path. And I knew the stuff I wanted to let go, but there was such a fog in my vision of where I wanted to go, who I wanted to become. And there is something I have to stress, like, this is a self-love piece too. There's a season of transition and in between. And that
Mhm.
for me has been one of the most difficult places to exist. And I'm mutable. I'm very go with the flow. I'm like
Mhm.
Gemini energy. But for me, I need direction. I need to know what I'm aiming for. I need to step towards something with purpose, right? And this in
Yeah.
between, I'm not the person who I was, but yet I'm not the person who I am becoming. And
Yeah.
so this slow transformational process is constant work, but it's like not fitting in. It's not having I lost a lot of old friends, but I don't have new friends that edify me the same way I do to. It's just
Yeah.
such a difficult place to be, but you keep showing up, you keep looking inward, you keep examining, what do I want?
Yeah.
I started with there there's like I forget, it was like a Venn diagram, how to find your passion, right? And
Yeah.
it's what makes me come alive, lights me up, what are my passions? For me, that was
Yeah.
spirituality, number one, art and nature,
Mm.
those things, and then people after,
Yeah.
because I'm an extrovert and I know my giftings are meant for communication. So passions, what are your talents? Like
Yeah.
what do you offer the world? Where do you excel in life? Are you good with words? Are you excellent at building things? Are you a great communicator? Are you a good teacher? Like what are your giftings? And
Yeah.
and spirit brings them to you in little
Yeah.
nudges. I would constantly get at work, I swear, once or twice a month at just serving at Disney, and someone would be like, "Did you know your voice is really soothing?" Like,
Mhm.
and I'd have someone touch my hand. You're very peaceful and calm. And it's like, I thought, well, yeah, I teach yoga, but then if I start to look at that, that's
Yeah.
part of my gifting. That's leading me to now look at what I'm doing here on a bigger
Yeah.
scale, you know? Hmm.
Yeah. So two things I really heard in there is you first became clear there was a lot that you didn't want. And I I'm just
The
gonna
shedding.
offer this. And yeah, it just I think the first step for a lot of people, for a lot of us, is becoming clear about what we don't want. Like, it's so
Yeah.
easy. I don't know about
It
you, but
takes you
how
to
many
what you
times do
do.
you ask somebody like, "What do you want out of this?" And they'll be like, "Well, I don't want this." Like, their brains
Yeah.
automatically go to all the things that have been crushing them, that are dissatisfying, they're depressing, and all those things. And I want to speak out there, like, to honor that, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's been a vital part of my process. There was a
Mm.
time where I didn't know how to dream either, so I was like, well, let me get clear about what I don't want. So when I start to see that stuff start popping up, at least I put my hands up and say stop, right? Like, to myself.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other thing I heard you say that's just so beautiful is paying attention to what's showing up around you. People are acknowledging
Yeah.
your voice and your presence and your energy, and you
Yeah.
heard that. Like, and I
You
hear
got to
how
make
that
space
then
to
it
hear it.
sounds like
Yeah.
that started to get you to like start to open up to like, wow, this is where I'm at. This is where
Mm.
I'm going. Yeah?
Yeah, and then that brings on a new piece of like, okay, so I got these inclinations, but then I had to start the dialogue with, are you strong enough to be the person that can embrace this? Are you willing? You say you want to be this new person. Are you willing to
Yeah.
sacrifice what needs to
It's
be
work.
done to it is. And so
Yeah.
then you start wondering like, well, shit, is this really what I want? I know what my soul's saying, like, we need to go over there.
Yeah.
We're going this way. We should go this way. But it's like, but I have to give up all this. And
Yeah.
the truth, the reality is there's so much better on the other side over the hill that you can't even see. But
Yeah.
we're creatures of we like stability, and we like the
We like
you
what we
know
know.
yeah, the
Even if we hate
familiar,
it, we like what
even
we
if we hate
know.
it, you know. But
Yeah.
it's that piece of, am I ready to go out into the deep? And
Yeah.
that's a whole nother, it's just, it's a process, and I'm still going through it. I'm not where I, but I know, flash forward in 5 years, I am going to be a completely different person from today, you know. Hmm.
Yeah. So, oh, you just led me right into my next curious question here. So, talk to me about where you are going in the next 5 years. Like, I know you don't know 100% yet either, and you're taking people along for this ride with you, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is the beautiful thing about being a healer in this world, right? Especially when we're in integrity, right? We're learning as we're going to often. None of us
100%.
have this stuff completely figured out, and
Yeah.
so as long as you're in integrity with that process. So, you know, dream. I want to hear some of this vision of you what you're experiencing already now that you see happening in 5 years.
Oh, so like I was saying, I know I'm still in that in between. I'm coming out of it. So I can feel the energy shifting, right?
Yeah.
I see the momentum building. I see things coming together quicker than they have before. Like now that I'm in that aligned space, the momentum's gathering.
Yeah.
So I still don't know. Like I always joke, and I say this to everyone because I just know in my soul this is how it's going to work. I'm aiming for over here. I'm doing all this podcasting, I'm building this divinity brand. I'm throwing out a net to connect with people, but
Yeah.
spirit's going to be like, just kidding, we're going over here. Like, but you needed to do
Yeah.
this stuff to get to that, like
Yeah.
one thing leads to another. And that's where that failure piece comes in too. You gotta be okay with failing, because again, like you said earlier, our failures teach us where we don't want to be, what's not working, to help us
Yeah.
guide. It puts us on the path where we are, what works, what is where we need to be.
Yeah.
So with this divinity brand that I've been starting, the
Mm.
whole purpose of it is for me to be able to help inspire and to empower others to
Yeah.
grow. And for me, that's intuition based and through self care. And
Mm.
the biggest thing that started my journey, that jump started this whole spiritual awakening, is I had to be honest with how I wasn't showing up for myself in all areas of my life. And
Yeah.
that means like from the food I'm putting into my body, or substances, or not using my body, like going to the gym, or the people I surround myself with, or the
Yeah.
content I'm constantly digesting.
Yeah.
I had to start examining things. And as you slowly, I don't know if you've seen this, it's like a TikTok or a meme or whatever, on Facebook, but it's a glass of water, and they say this is what spiritual healing's really like. And it's a dirty, convoluted glass, right? And they just put it under a faucet,
Yeah.
and it just slowly changes color over time. And that's
Yeah.
that shedding process. You have to let
Yeah.
go, and you do that through your exploration. Start taking a yoga class and you realize, oh, this resonates different. You start hanging around people who open your mind to new philosophies. You know what I mean? That can be just friends that make you feel good to be around.
Yeah.
But slowly start to clarify. You start to get that vision. And that's when the vision's always there, I
Yeah.
feel, but we just got to move the muck out of the way to get
Yeah.
there, to see clear, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I appreciate you bringing up the muck because as we've been talking, I've been thinking like, well, we're talking about this as if, and I didn't intentionally mean for our conversation to evolve this way, but almost as if like it's this clear path that you just stay on, and somehow you're staying in, and it's like a bowling alley. Somehow there's some guardrails and you just keep bouncing in between. And we both
No.
know it's not like that, that there is a lot of muck along the way.
Yeah.
And I, I wonder either what you experienced or what you've observed in the people that you've worked with and talked with so far. What stops people from actually pursuing this? Or where do you see blocks, or who shouldn't be trying to dive into this yet? Like somewhere in that category of, even though and I know that this is like a really important part of our personal evolution, who should stand back in the meantime until they're ready, or whatever, right?
One of my quotes I always say is, when the student is ready, the teacher. I think
Yeah.
that is the purest guide. If you're seeking, if you have the desire for more knowledge, for more understanding. That is your soul craving growth. It is
Yeah.
prompting you. And I'm that's what I want to do with this actually. I want to with the divinity stuff, I want to see what is inevitable. But
Yeah.
what I but what I'm realizing, I'm not meant to go out and evangelize like the church culture I grew up in. Really, I'm just meant to shine and put my light out there. And the people that it's meant for, the people that are
Yeah.
ready will see my light and they're going to be drawn to me. And vice
Yeah.
versa. Like we elevate each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
If this doesn't appeal to you, if there's just no resonance in it, then that's okay.
Yeah.
I would argue you're not there yet, but sometimes it's just we're not open to it. There's a reason. There's a reason.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the work for us is to understand what are the blockages? Why are we,
Yeah.
why aren't we open? Why aren't we curious with
To
ourselves?
bring it back to Walt's quote as you're talking, I'm sitting there thinking about if somebody doesn't feel insulted by their circumstances, if they're comfortable, right?
Yeah.
I might look at their situation and think it looks really mucky, but if they're like, "I'm happy in the muck,"
I'm good.
right?
Yeah. Like
Hey,
right.
hey, right? Like, yeah, this is not one because it's not for the faint of heart, right?
Yeah.
Going through these abrupt changes and basically going up against the grain because
It's
awakening is
hard.
happening. Like, it's not,
It's
this is not
dark.
just getting out of bed. Although I'll be really candid, there's the greater portion of my life just getting out of bed and awakening was like that simple step was a lot,
Yeah.
right?
There's
So,
times, yeah. It's
yeah,
not always that way. I wanna
yeah,
like there is
yeah,
good to this, but
yeah.
it's that if the more you know, you can't go back to the past, right? Like
No,
once you know, there's no
once you
going
take that
back.
pill,
And
there's
it's
no
just,
going back.
oh, now you see it. Like now you see the shit. Like, oh, I can't hang out with these people anymore because they are not life-giving. I can't
Yeah,
go to this job anymore because I it's not fulfilling, but now I can't ignore it any longer. I need to do
yeah,
something in alignment. So there is, but that's what makes us lighter in the end. That's what brings us
yeah.
more joy and abundance, you know? Mm.
Those steps to evolution and with our people too is a really important piece, right?
Yeah.
Um, I know I've personally gone through different stages of this in my own awakening where it was really hard to accept that there were people that I really loved and cared about that weren't a good fit in my life. And I didn't know how to move away from that without it feeling like I was pointing the finger at them or blaming them. And I didn't know how to do it without blaming them at certain parts, right? And this has happened at like
Mm.
different stages of my own evolution of realizing that I created that world, especially when I started like walking away from like core environmental stuff that, you can't help because you were born into it, right? You were born into the
Yeah.
Midwest. I was born, I was born. Um, and I also just want to encourage people to, right, in the work that you're offering here, that we're all offering, that there are stages, right? And to be gentle with ourselves and
Gracious
with the
to
people
yourself.
around us, right?
Yeah.
They're all showing up at different stages to show us either who we are or who we no longer are. And to allow those evolutions and to trust, right? Like you said, on the other
The
side of
process.
that hill, there is somebody. It is there. You actually have to believe that it's there. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're gonna be like, "Oh, it's just the same crap," right? And you're like, "But there is more, right? And there are
Yeah, there
evolutions to this." And it's really incredible. And it can be bittersweet sometimes going through the process, right? Like I know I've certainly, I don't know about, well, I think you have shared this. There's been some people that I love and adore that I
mm,
I I I felt like I was leaving them behind, but I know I wasn't leaving them behind.
yeah.
Honestly, I know if I would have maintained those relationships, then we would have both stayed behind. Like
Yes.
we would have stunted
Yes.
each other's growth and evolution. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm guilty of that. I think in my marriage, why I stayed in my marriage when it wasn't healthy for so long is because I was waiting for him to come up with me. I didn't
Yeah.
want to. One, I'm sure there was a fear factor. Like I didn't want to leave him behind because what would be on the other side? I would be alone or
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would lose. But if someone is meant to grow with you, they will grow with you. You don't have to keep pulling them up. They'll keep up with you. And if
Yeah.
they don't, then you need to release that angst about because something is meant for you on the other side. Something
Yeah.
more is meant for you ahead. You have to shed, you have to release to accept the new. Mm.
Yep. Yeah. Being that snake, William. being willing to let that skin come off, or be that
Yes.
crab to let that one shell go off because 'cause you're just too big for it now and moving on to the
Yeah.
next thing.
But
Yeah.
the thing is you're gonna be miserable if you don't. You know what I mean? And if you're gonna be a little miserable through the growing, you might as well embrace and choose which one you're gonna do, right? Like, if I'm gonna suffer either way, I might as well get something out of this, like
Touche.
Mm,
Touche.
mhm.
So, Dave, as we're talking about your spiritual awakening, you mentioned that there was a time when you came out with your family and how the church like was there to help you and support you. You came out with the family. You had other people come in and support you and take you through that process. And then I heard you talk about how you went into a had a have a marriage and that you realized that the marriage wasn't right. And you were talking about there were different plateaus here for you. And I'm really curious. I'd love to hear more about those. Sound like some stair steps to me. And I'd love to hear more about what that awakening was for you, to share more with other people about like what this process actually looks like because you've lived it.
So my experience, okay, so I would say again, for me, the most significant transition, there's 2 major points in my life. The most recent, like divorce, but after I came out, after I went through that ex-gay ministry, that conversion ministry,
Mm.
it really challenged me to dig my heels in. What is your truth? I had to make a choice. Am I going to go along with this for the sake of my father's acceptance to stay in the house? Am I going to go along with it to preserve this church community that isn't authentic, that isn't real? That became apparent in this truth revelation, right?
Yeah.
So I got kicked out and it was horrible because you got to put your world together, right? But
Yeah.
you do it, you make it through these seasons. And
Yeah.
what that looked like from there, I lost my community. I actually was kind of liberated. I had a release that was almost euphoric because I wasn't living up to anyone else's expectations but my own. I had complete
Mhm.
free reign over my will and what I wanted to do with my life. There was a liberation in that. I wasn't beholden to any doctrines or so I had this opportunity to completely explore freely. So,
Yeah.
in these moments of liberation, there is a powerful, profound um, energy that comes with it that brings
Yeah.
new life, that ushers in the new. And what that looked like for me in that was yoga. I've always been curious
Mhm.
about yoga. And I did a few classes and I felt like these were my people. Whether it's past life stuff or I like moving my body for the first time in a while, but
Yeah.
it resonated. And then that turned into Tai Chi. I did a community
Mm.
center class and then that turned into a few more for a year or two. And just one thing after another, I started exploring Buddhism, and Buddhism just it hit the ideas that were so different from the Christian faith I had grown up in to we have the control within ourselves. We are our own saviors in essence. It's through our work
Yeah.
of we are the only ones that can liberate ourselves, through controlling the mind to, stopping our karmic cycles. That again, that was then and it has a different resonance now, but one thing led to another. Um,
Yeah.
I met a man and because I didn't have the tools, the wherewithal to find the help I needed in that moment. Um, I ended up getting in a relationship, and our damage just pulled us together. He was from a really rough house too, and we loved each other, and that's all we needed in that. But
Yeah.
those cycles, patterns started to perpetuate things that I didn't heal, wounds that I had obtained from my family of origin started to spill over into my marriage.
Yeah.
You can put band-aids on stuff for a while, but when you know that it's not right.
Yeah.
But then there was a season, I would say around, early 30s that I knew things weren't okay for me. They were
Yeah.
progressing in a way that weren't right. But I was afraid. I was afraid and I acquiesced and I gave away a lot of my power and to keep the peace, which was something I did in my family of origin.
Yeah.
Um,
You
so
you
I
saw
started,
yourself in the mirror, right?
yeah, I started searching again. I
Yeah.
started looking, and that came in the form of going to Casadega, which is, I don't know if
Mm.
you've heard of it, have you?
No, no, what's
So
Cas
Casadega is this, small town, probably about an hour outside of Orlando to the north, and it's actually the largest spiritualist community
Mm,
uh, in the nation, and it's supposed to be built on a meridian. But back at the turn of the century, all these mediums and sensitives and psychics during this spiritualist movement actually
mhm.
came here to settle, and they built community. And there's still a law on the books. You have to be a medium and take a test and like show your sensitivity to connecting to live in that community. So it's kind of a
Wow.
tourist
Yeah.
trap now, but it's
Yeah.
fun to get, have a few drinks and go with
Yeah.
friends and like, hey, let's get our cards read, let's get our palms done. And they have witchy shops and a haunted hotel. But I ended up on a recommendation finding a friend, a would-be friend, Psychic Judy, just Reverend Judy Cooper. And she was this cute, little old grandma lady sitting in her chair, and she just read me for filth. Like, she just, what are you doing? Like, what this, you're not happy here. Why are you putting up with this? This is, your lifestyle. Read me for filth. And I was like, wow, there's more. And then I started that dialogue. I started searching more. She gave me some
Okay,
directions.
how did you take the feedback? Did the
Well,
shots
well,
help it go down a little bit better
it's
or
a spectrum, right? Because at first you're like, you don't know me, like you don't know me, but like, how does she know this shit? Like, like it's crazy to have someone you don't know with no frame of reference to just pull stuff. And that's what I mean. Like that expanded my consciousness because, okay, she's saying she's reading auras. I can't see this. I can't prove that, but it's coming from somewhere. And how
Yeah.
is this information accurate? So it expanded my mind. And
Yeah.
then start searching more. What is energy work? What is the subtle body, the auras that she was talking about? How can she, and God, you can go down wormholes like talking about, parallel dimensions and how time works and quantum theory. There's so many aspects to this,
Yeah.
but it will come and unfold as it needs.
Yeah.
And just befriending Psychic Judy, it turned into a few visits over the years. Then I started bringing people to her because I saw the transformation in my life and seeing the awareness and what it brought to me. I
Yeah.
wanted to share with others, which just starts conversations and that soul dive. So
I like
that,
that she called out your filth because
oh,
that is absolutely part of the process, Dave. Oh my God. I
and
remember
she
when
didn't care about you coming back. She was because spirit had something to say to
she
me,
was
and it
just doing
wanted.
her job.
She's like, I don't care if you come back. I know you're going to come back
Yeah.
because she's psychic Judy.
That's
but
awesome.
but seriously, spirit will tell you what you
Well,
need to hear, not what you want to know. You know what I mean? Sometimes
yeah.
both, but
Yeah.
there's always a message in the moment for you. And that could be
Yeah.
my grandpa came through, which I never
Mhm.
really had a relationship with him. But then I started finding pennies everywhere. And that developed a relationship with my grandfather, who's very protective and very involved in my family. Now, from where I'm at, I find
Yeah.
pennies that, pennies from heaven and messages all the time from him. My sister, too. So by sharing Psychic Judy with her and that experience I had, now she's had this intensely gratifying experience that's changed her walk, her view,
Yeah.
her spirituality. So, hmm,
That's
Psychic
beautiful.
Judy.
Thank you for sharing that because it's important for folks to understand that this stuff does unfold, right? I just heard
Yep,
like it's a
naturally.
journey, right? Like this
Yeah.
is not again, this is not a light switch, right? There are light switch moments. Psychic
Yeah.
tree helps
Yeah.
you with that, but yeah,
And
yeah.
and
Thank
just trusting the process. Like I wouldn't have been open to Psychic Judy's experience and the truth bombs she was just throwing at me
you. Yeah,
10 years earlier. So,
yeah,
and that's what I want to say to people that are just like on the fence with a lot of I'm the most woo woo out of the group by far. I know what I know though. And
yeah,
like I said, if it doesn't resonate, then it's not for you. But
yeah,
for people it does, that this is my experience. And I know people have had experiences like mine. And
yeah,
so if it just doesn't resonate, then it's not for you, and that's okay. You maybe
yeah,
there's a different avenue. Maybe there's philosophy or like even religion can serve its purpose. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like there's beauty in religion too. It's
yeah.
just what
There's
resonates with
many
your
ways
soul.
to finding our own awakening for
Yes.
sure. Yeah,
And we need them all. We need
yeah.
them all.
And I'm with you on the things that surprise you. I mean, you know a
Yeah.
little bit about my story with evolutionary astrology. Like, I went to my now mentor because I trusted him from some conversations that we had. I didn't go there to learn astrology, and then all of a sudden I was like, "Oh, this
Oh,
is
there's something to it.
this is now my jam." And now it's like a vital, integral part of my life.
And
I
it's
didn't see that
subtle,
coming 4
right?
years ago. Yeah.
Exactly. And it catches you off guard. That's one thing spirit does. It always like, oh, surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
That this is your new life path.
Yep.
Like,
Yep. It's a
but
wild
you know
ride.
when you
It's a
know,
beautiful
right?
ride.
You know
Yeah.
when you know.
You know when you know. Dave, what have I not asked you yet that you just are like biting to share with the world?
Um, well, I guess kind of what I'm when I say I'm at the end of this season, this new beginning, um, I am in this astrological pattern right now where the last year and a half have been transformational on purpose. We always,
Yeah.
like that 40-year period, like that midlife crisis, like it's a real thing because there is a realignment happening. We're very aware of our mortality. Our
Yeah.
life is half lived. Hopefully, I got a few more before it's half over, but it's just start putting things in perspective. And so it's again that soul's like, we're not here forever.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm coming out of this transition though, and that's showing up in the divinity brand, the tree house that we've been
Yeah.
building. And what I'm excited about, what I'm ready to share with others is just the wisdom and knowledge that I've gained through my
Yeah.
experiences, but also just through my research and through just the people I've met. It's definitely gonna take a, um, probably a more interview aspect on the divinity because people
Yeah.
are what we need. That's what helps us grow. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think I grow the most when I exchange with others. I learn when I teach and vice versa. So
Yeah.
I want to use the divinity brand for that, but that's going to be a big component of the treehouse as well. This information collection of oh, hold on, we're going to pause right here.
All right, we're gonna pause right here. All right.
You hear the kid?
Yeah, I hear it. Yeah.
He has this little like scoop bus. It looks like a school bus, but he's like leg propelled, and he
He
just
sounds
ran into
excited. Like that was
yeah.
a
Well,
happy
he
scream, right?
at first, and then he fell
Oh.
off the bus.
And then he fell off the bus.
So hi, good luck. Too
Part of
funny.
your awakening, buddy. It's
Yeah.
part of the learning process.
Right. Uh, so where was I? Like with the treehouse, I'm
Yeah.
excited one to connect with people and to build community. That's the other thing. I'm looking personally for my tribe. I'm looking for people that
Yeah.
want to grow. They're hungry to grow like I am, and that are open-minded enough to explore these things, to push, to do the work, because it can be way more delightful and easier
Yeah.
when you have people to go through it with who understand you and who can um help guide you, help
Yeah.
bolster you in these times. There's always a give and a take, but it's just how expansion works.
Yeah.
Mm.
That is one of the more, if not the most beautiful thing about Treehouse building out, right? And for folks that haven't watched any of our other podcasts here, the main point of us doing these podcasts for Treehouse Athenaeum is to start to clarify this. I mean, it's essentially a learning platform, but it's a community
Yeah.
platform. It's
Yeah,
bringing people
absolutely.
from different understandings and experiences and how they have had their own awakenings, right? Gotten uh, deeper knowledge and understanding of themselves and are able to show up in their own world and this world more powerfully as a result of that. And we each bring our own unique skills and gifts and just
Absolutely.
presence in that. And I know you with Divinity Day, right? It's already in the name. But I really want to like hit on, right? Because you'll be an individual contributor to Treehouse too. You're not just one of the co-founders.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
but that divinity piece, right? I know you're a highly intuitive person, and you know, uh, because that is one of your biggest gifts and how you show up and connect with people. I was going to ask it a different way, but actually, I'd love to hear like where
Well, can I tell
you.
you about the divinity? I want to clarify for people who this is the first experience or exposure to it, why divinity?
Yeah, go there.
Why I
I'm
chose
still
that
going to
name.
ask the other question I had too, but yeah, go there, please. Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
But I was thinking it's not about me like divinity, like again, it's not about me. It's to remind you of your divinity, your connection to source, the power already within you. You have the breath of life. You have, your cells are animated, your atoms are moving. It's the same thing
Mm.
that makes up everything. And I just, again, it's that inspiration piece. I want to remind you that everything that you want, everything you desire, everything you're looking for is there if
Yeah.
you do the work, if you show up for it. And sometimes it takes us, we need help finding the way to start, the path to start on, but
Yeah.
your soul will guide you. And that's the intuitive piece. I want to help people reconnect with their intuitive source within themselves so that they can find their own path, because it's completely individual and varied. It's infinite,
Yeah. I just
Hmm.
had this vision as you were describing that because you said it so clearly into the camera. You're like, I want to tell you about your divinity. And I just
Hmm.
imagine myself because this happens to me a lot where I'll be walking through the world and I'll just be like, I just need like, and fill in the blank something,
Yeah.
right? And spirit will be like, look over here, or if I'm
Yeah.
home, pull a book off the page. And I can imagine like, all right, I'm gonna hop on Dave's page, I'm gonna hop on your YouTube. Because I do that too, right? I'll hop on YouTube and it'll just the
That's how
algorithm reading our
yeah.
minds these days. So something will just pop up.
But
I'll be like,
spirit
oh,
also uses it
exactly what I
too.
need.
Like it brings
Yeah.
us, like if you get a quote and it makes you, it hits right, it's
Yeah.
for you. Don't
Yeah.
question it. That's for you. That's spirit talking to you. That's your soul finding what it needs.
Yeah.
Don't doubt it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
What's one of the most fun, exciting, or eccentric, intuitive, like hits that you've got that you've like been able to like shine on somebody? Doesn't have to be the
Oh,
most, but just something that stands out to you.
like intuitive for others, like a message I receive for others or for
Yeah,
myself or
when Divinity Dave is turned on, right? Like, and
yeah.
just walking through this world, I'm just curious, like, what
Ah,
pops to mind of where somebody's been like, "Oh, damn, I didn't know you were coming."
yeah. Well, that happens often. Right. It's hard to
Really
miss
not
me.
you.
I'm just so he is bright. Actually, that's why Day is part of the divinity name, because um my sister, when she was young, I chose Day instead of Dave, because she couldn't say my David, so she called me Day. So I love that, but I've always been that
Yeah.
bright personality in the room. Like
Yeah.
it's just unavoidable. I'm here to shine, like,
Yeah.
and help others shine. So
Yeah.
it's unavoidable. But I would say, even since starting this, people have been approaching me out of nowhere. It's like, this is what's the gratifying piece. This is why I'm doing it. Is like, oh, I've watched your video and it put this together for me. And I've been
Yeah.
searching this out now, or I
Mhm.
connected a piece, or it really validated. Someone came up to me. I just went out with friends a few weeks ago, and someone came up to me, and it was weird because you never know in a bar situation. You're like, okay, but he was a kind of lyric, and he recognized me from a video, and he's like, "I just wanna let you know your TikTok on angel numbers just really spoke to me, and it opened the
Wow.
door," and he said, "Open the door." And so he's like, "I can't really talk to people about this stuff, but I know my truth, I know what my
Yeah.
soul is saying," and it just validated me, and
Yeah.
that's why the community piece is so important. I want to
Yeah.
have a network. I wanna have easy connections with
Yeah.
people who are like-minded,
Yeah.
who understand the world isn't meant to be this way. Like, it can be
Yeah.
better. It can be more. We can be more. Oof, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the
How
piece.
is the world meant to be? Share
I
more.
think
Day.
auth day, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Put that light on it.
Happier, more at peace, more in tune with nature, and I just I look at it as, if we are authentic unto ourselves, then there's space for others to be, right?
Yeah.
And then you get these sweeping metaphors that are so trite, but it's like a tapestry, or it's like all the crayons in the box that come together to form the picture. We each, or I love actually like the idea of the cells in a body. The body is a microcosm, it's
Mhm.
a macro at the same time. If everyone has their role to play, what they're offering, what their soul is here to express, and has space for that, it works in tandem. And
Yeah.
then everything, like harmony, it's just balance. The nature of the universe is equilibrium. It's balance, light and dark, but there should be like the surface of a pond, right?
Yeah.
There's an equilibrium. And if everyone is able to flourish and thrive, it it ripples and causes others to do the same. And it the vibration. It only edifies creation or everything, you know.
Yeah.
Mm.
That is the irony because, the universe itself is incredibly chaotic, right? That's part
Yeah.
of it. And
It necessary.
if everything is in its rightful spot, like playing out its rightful spot, the chaos does have an equilibrium to it, and
Yeah.
things just
It doesn't
seem
last
to
forever,
flow.
right?
Yeah.
There's always a pendulum, but it eventually settles again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So, Dave, when we were talking the other day, and talking about spiritual awakening, you shared a quote with me that really hit me. I hadn't heard this quote before that you talked about that helps you to stay focused and inspired and has really helped you along each step of your way with your own spiritual awakening and the work that you do today. Do you remember the quote that you shared with me?
I do. It's also Walt Whitman, my sage. 1850s, he was talking like this. I love it.
I know.
Um, Full circle moment, actually, from what we were saying earlier about being lost in that in between and
Mm,
not knowing the next step. And sometimes that's exactly where spirit wants us to be
yeah.
humbled to the point of we can't control, have to trust step by step, knowing what we need will come to us, knowing in
Yeah.
the perfect timing. But the quote I put on my vision board at the beginning of this year, before Treehouse was even a thought, before Divinity was a thought, I started this year out and my soul was, I was meditating, I was praying, and I was like, okay, I've done it. I'm here now, but where do I go next? Like,
Yeah.
where I need direction. And I found a quote when I was making my vision board, put all my
Yeah.
things of what I want to manifest for myself. And it said, it was Walt Whitman, and it said, do anything, but let it produce joy.
Mm.
And it just,
Thank you for saying that again. Yeah.
oh, do anything. Do anything. Don't take it so serious. Do anything, but let it produce joy. Have fun with
Yeah.
it. Follow your bliss. What lights you up?
Yeah.
That simple. And even if that's it, if I go to my work, my 9 to 5, and then I come home and just do what I love and follow that trail, it's going to transform the
Yeah.
new opportunities. If I do, and you see this on Etsy, people like crocheting weird cat things and like you just, but all of a sudden it's a business, and there's
Yeah.
10,000 other people that love weird cat crochet things and they
Yeah.
buy like we limit ourselves so much. It's getting to that open space of just following joy. That is,
Yeah.
I feel like our natural, our where we should be existing. Our natural temperature is life word,
Yeah.
so finding joy in the day to day and just
Yeah.
following that, and that's led me to my joy is people. I want to connect with people. I want to talk about spirituality because of what it's done in my life. I want
Yeah.
to give that joy to others, and then one thing after another.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's so important too because it's not just as you were saying that I'm hearing like the skeptics say like, "Oh, you can't just quit your job and start a hobby," right?
Mm.
But the truth of
No,
that
there's an in
statement
between.
is, yeah, there are steps in between. But the truth of that statement is if the anything that we're doing is not bringing us joy, then there's part of the spiritual journey, right? There's part of that awakening of this isn't bringing me joy. So what, right? And so,
Why? Why?
you can throw pasta at the wall and see what's going to stick until something actually starts to feel joyful, right? Anything, just try anything
Yeah,
and just
just
keep
try.
try different things. You can be in this icky, ugly spot that you realize is joyless while you're
Yeah,
trying out these other things. Then yeah, and that's where you get that awakening, man.
because you're
Yeah,
eventually going to hit something, and you're
yeah,
eventually going to find that thing.
yeah,
If you don't try, though, nothing changes. That inertia never shifts. And
yeah,
that's the failure piece, too. I was afraid to fail. I didn't want to try things because I like to be good at what I do, and I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to invest in things that aren't going to pan out.
yeah,
Sometimes the only point of the failure is to show you to the next step. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
not a loss then, because it's taken me to where I am. It's
yeah,
scary, but it's necessary. It's
yeah,
necessary.
yeah.
Mm.
Dave, it's been such a joy talking with you today. And I'm really
Same.
excited to see more of you in this world and more of divinity in this world and what's to
Mm.
come with the
Thank you.
treehouse and your contributions. there. Thank you so much for giving me time today to get to know you better, for the world to get
Yeah,
to know you better.
thank you. I enjoyed spending time with you too.
Yeah.
Did.
Thanks everybody for coming to visit with us today. We'll
Mhm.
see you again
We'll
next
see you
time.
soon.
Thanks for joining us in the treehouse today. If you enjoyed your time here, can you do us one little favor and send this episode over to someone else who might need to hear it? We love ratings, reviews, and recommendations. We appreciate you so much. Have a gorgeous day.